So let's just jump right into this first story. It says from the Washington Post, Trump plans to turn himself in for arraignment Tuesday, reports the Washington Post. I mean, that's basically it. They say former President Trump plans to fly from Florida to New York on Monday before appearing in a specially secured Manhattan courthouse to be arraigned on still unspecified criminal charges. People briefed on the arraignment said Trump is not going to hole up in Mar-a-Lago. His lawyer, Joe Tacopina, said Friday, a day after news of the Manhattan grand jury's indictment broke. So I guess the question here is, how do they even do this? Like, he's going to have to be released on bail on his own recognizance. They're not going to put him in jail. What is Secret Service going to go in jail with him?
Well, it's never happened in the history of our country. In our 250 years as a republic, this has never happened before. But from my understanding, Secret Service is taking lead on this process. So they've been working with the NYPD. And so on Tuesday, he's going to be arraigned. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's terrible this is happening in our country. This is third world crap. This is a banana republic now. But I got to say, they're going to regret that, putting that guy on a mugshot. Can you imagine the T-shirts that are going to come from that?
One of the stories we'll get to later is how Joe Biden's going to spend the rest of his days with Hunter behind bars because they set the precedent. But you've also got that Mackey guy who made a meme in 2016. He just got convicted formally by, I think it was a jury, right? Yeah. And there's a woman who did the same thing he did, and she got no charges.
And what he did was he made a meme that said, instead of going to vote, text your vote to this number, which was a false thing. And so they're like, hey, you can't mislead people.
And they couldn't find a single victim.
But the girl did the exact same thing. Hey, instead of voting for Trump and don't wait in long lines, text this number with your vote.
And texts are totally, she didn't post a number though, but she did say text voting is legitimate. So I'm saying we're already in it. We are absolutely in it.
100%. And, on January 6th, all the people that brought a Trump flag to the Capitol and peacefully protested, they're spending years and years behind bars. But just a couple of days ago, transurrectionists stormed state capitals across the country, and they're never going to see a day in jail.
And not only that, but they attacked cops. There's videos of them pushing and fighting with cops. And there was a shaman.
Although I think
there was a shaman.
I'll back those guys up on their rights. I'm saying guys for men and women and everybody's guys in my opinion. That's how I talk. But like it didn't seem I wouldn't call it violent. When the politicians came into this is in Tennessee, the one I saw, the cops grabbed people to move them out of the way. There was a little pushing and pulling. I didn't see any blood. I didn't see anyone striking anyone. So I support your right to protest.
I didn't see any police throwing flashbangs into the crowds or tear gassing these innocent protesters.
It's not just about that. It's about the protesters were holding up 7 fingers as a protest sign, which signifies that the perpetrator of the mass shooting was a victim. That, like, you are in a cold civil war. And I don't even know if it's fair to call it cold, because the power of the federal government is being wielded to beat people on the right into submission. It is the weight of executive authority crushing down on people. So I don't think it's fair to call it cold. I think we have seen physical confrontations. We have seen death. We saw the far left try to burn down the White House, burn down St. John's Church. And we saw, even with January 6th, the fighting on one side, like, the conflict is hot. It's happening. It's just not like people are so ignorant to history of the world. They expect there to be a formal declaration by Virginia. We hereby declare we are declaring civil war. And then for New York to be like, we are mobilizing our troops to fight you. And then they march down the street towards each other. What do they think war is?
I don't know. Well, I think Jack Posobiec summed this week up pretty well. He said this week they indicted their top political opponent, convicted a descendant, and one of their nuts shot up a school full of Christian children. And that's just 1 week. And it's so true. That's what's happening. I mean, they threw a guy, they're trying to put a guy who made a meme mocking Hillary Clinton, and believe me, there's a lot of material there to mock her with. But they're throwing this guy in prison. They're trying to throw him in prison for making a freaking meme. And every single person needs to be speaking out in defense of Douglas Mackey. Every journalist, I saw some journalists that were giddy about this guy being indicted. Yep. These are the people that are supposed to protect the First Amendment and care about issues like this, but they're celebrating a guy who mocked a political figure for going, and they want him to go to jail.
What's the legality if I stood outside of like a voting place and told people it's shut down today, guys, go home?
The legality doesn't matter, obviously and clearly.
Well, what he did was
Because
tell them instead of don't go vote, instead just text it here.
doesn't
He
matter
didn't tell
because
anyone. He posted a meme to like nobody on the internet.
So what is the legality? Can I stand outside of a voting station and tell people it's closed today, everyone go
It's
home?
If you're
whatever.
a Democrat, absolutely. Just make sure you register as a Democrat before.
But I mean, I'm being serious. Is it legal or illegal to do
you
that?
You cannot go to an individual and lie to them to trick them into not voting.
Okay, that's my question. And that's what this person, you're right, he didn't go to an individual. He
And there
posted
were
a
no
vague-
victims.
Okay.
And there was a woman who was a Democrat who did the exact same thing who wasn't charged. So I'm not interested in hearing any arguments about it.
He's going to jail for election interference, right? You want to talk about election interference? The left is concerned about election interference, that they want to throw a memer in jail, but they're celebrating corrupt and obese Alvin Bragg for trying to throw the top political opponent in jail. That's election interference, if we're talking about election interference, not some guy who made a meme that barely anybody saw. And so these people are sick, and they tried them in Brooklyn, right? No conservative is going to get a fair shake in Brooklyn. No conservative is going to get a fair shake in D.C. And
They're going to convict him.
It's terrible. That's what's happening.
And then
they're
going to push for jail time because they're saying it's 34 counts. They're going to move they are going to try to put him. The reason they're doing it at the state level is because he can still run for president. He can still win the presidency. And if it was a federal crime, which the Fed said we can't try him for this, then he'd be able to pardon himself. But it's a state level crime, so they lock him up.
Alex, I wanted to follow up and ask you about this. There's been interesting reactions to this indictment across the political spectrum. One from Governor Ron DeSantis, whose tweet reads, "The weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American." He says the Soros-backed Manhattan DA has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and to excuse criminal conduct. Yet now he is stretching the law to target a political opponent. And then most interestingly, at the end of his tweet, he says Florida will not assist in an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda. Can I get your reaction to this?
Yeah, so that second part, we'll start with the second part. That's not even an issue. Like, that's not even been a part of the discussion, and that's just him trying to get some attention out of this. This stuff for his own political gain. But the first part of his strong statement came after 48 hours of attacks, because when it first was reported, he was completely silent. And then when he finally opened his mouth about it that Monday, his consultants had him read this script at a press conference, at a planted question. And he says that it's a sideshow. He said he's not going to be distracted by a circus. He said he's focused on Florida. Then he traveled to whatever state to sell his book. But he only responded because he had so much outside pressure. And he had, it was terrible for him in the polls. He started going down in the polls after
Do you
failing
think
to
that
respond.
second part is bait, where he says Florida will not assist in an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda?
Again, I think that is simply just him trying to save face and try to get some publicity for himself out of this movement. There's not even been a conversation about that. And then you had a lot of the DeSantis influencers who don't influence much that were pushing a narrative about how, if Trump really wants to fight the political persecution, he should take a stand and listen to DeSantis and refuse to be extradited. And I think that's just so foolish.
The Soros DAs it's popular to attack them nowadays. He's mentioned Soros twice in this tweet. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm no fan of Soros, and Soros waited on the 2024 election. He said that he believes Ron DeSantis will be the nominee and will cause Trump to go into some narcissistic induced state. So, Soros is a guy that we have to pay attention to and do something about. I don't think that a foreign-born individual should be able to pay for state prosecutors and have them do the bidding of the political party that he wants.
Is he paying companies to pay to get the prosecutor?
He has
in?
PACs.
That's how you have to do it, because
nonprofits.
an individual can't just pay $1 million to a candidate. So what he does is there are a variety of super PACs and PACs, political action committees. What is it? Political action committee?
Yes.
He can give as much money as he wants to them, and then they campaign on your behalf. The only rule for super PACs is that they don't collude with the candidate. It's like a free speech ruling, which is just crazy because it's a secondary campaign, which of course is going to do everything to get you elected, and you can funnel as much money as you want into them.
They're not supposed to collude, but they do with a wink and a nod.
Yep.
But Soros plays every game. He doesn't just focus on the national politics. He's at the state levels. He's at the local levels. And that's why conservatives and people who care about our country need to be paying attention to every single race. And so there's a race that every American needs to be paying attention about right now. It's the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, where a guy named Justice Dan Kellen Kelly's running for the Supreme Court there. Scott Pressler, give him a shout. He's been doing really great work on the ground in Wisconsin, turning out the vote. But we need that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat pretty badly, because if we don't get it, we're going to fall into another Soros judge. Soros gave $1 million to help this Democrat get elected to the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. So he's focused at every level of government, and we're seeing the consequences of that right now, where conservative billionaires are, not so focused on anything except for getting Ron DeSantis enough money to try to beat Trump in the MAGA movement.
It's very concerning that anyone, even an American, can just push buttons and send hundreds of millions of dollars to other people to go do political work for them. Like, that's like a hijacking of our politics system. We're supposed to be for the people, working for ourselves.
No. You can use your resources to promote ideas that you want to see spread around. Any kind of limit on that is a limit on the freedom of speech, because you have the right to hire people and engage in commerce and engage in activity in society. This is Citizens United. That's the argument that's made. The argument with the Supreme Court found that Citizens United, or in the Citizens United case, was that you had the right to have an organization to promote your ideas, that your property, as in your money, you could use your property to promote your ideas. And that's what Citizens United is. So if you want to start a foundation or something like that, and you want to go ahead and have some kind of organization that promotes ideas, that's the Heritage Foundation, that's Cato, that's the Center for American Progress, that's all kinds of think tanks. And
it's Media Matters.
Yeah, that's totally Media. God. I mean, and I absolutely detest what Media Matters is trying to promote. They're communists. They're awful. I think that if they got their way, they would literally destroy the United States. I think that's their intent. They are illiberal authoritarians. But it doesn't mean that we can say, well, shut them down. You can't do that. Not in a free country.
I have a personal problem with Citizens United. I don't like it. I don't like that you can put unlimited amounts of money into politics. And in the beginning of the Republic, you couldn't.
How do you stop it? What do you mean you couldn't? You always could.
No, it was when someone was taking whistle stop trains. They're like, why can't I spend my own money campaigning for myself? And they're like, well, he's got a point.
And then other people would do the same thing. The newspapers would be like, we endorse this person, and we're going to put all of our resources to getting him elected. We're going to put him on the front page. It's never been any different. There was a challenge to it with Citizens United, and the Supreme Court was like, it's your dollar. You can speak.
And also another thing that I want to point out, you hear Democrats that have a lot of problem with Citizens United. They're always the ones that complain about it. And since Citizens United, you've had Barack Obama, then you had one term of Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden. So it's not that Citizens United means that conservatives and maybe it does mean the corporations, because the corporations are in bed with the Democrats nowadays. But it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to be conservative ideas, or that it's going to be the oligarchy of the church being in charge. So far, it's been Democrats.
Well, we were talking about Matt Gaetz before we launched the show here, but Matt Gaetz takes $0 from special interest groups or PACs. He was the first Republican politician to say, I don't want your money.
Yeah, Barack Obama spent more money than anyone ever, and then Hillary Clinton did the same thing, and Donald Trump didn't spend more money than everyone, and he still won. So
what makes me a big fan of these MAGA politicians, from President Trump to Matt Gaetz, is they would rather have small dollar donations from hardworking Americans than go and kiss the asses of the Club for Gross of the world, who receive $200 million from 5 people, and then they have to take marching orders. President Trump, when he ran in 2020, 53% of his dollars came from very small dollar donors.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.